So, Salem Covenant, you get to be a first of the 22 intentional interims that I've had the privilege of serving. I have yet to have any where we had my farewell Sunday and then I came back the next Sunday and preached again. So it's sort of an encore. Please don't assume I'm just trying to, get more pie out of you or something. So these are the parts of what I get the joy of doing that are probably less enjoyable for me, and that's not a statement about you at all. I dislike goodbyes. And yet I also find that in a number of cases, it's not really goodbye, it's just the relationship changes. So you have in your bulletins a little slip here, and it says, "Pray it forward." It's completely voluntary, so don't feel any obligation or arm twist at all. But it started many, many years ago. I was serving a church in Rochester, getting ready to head to the next one, which sounded immensely troubled. And I mentioned that in my last message at Rochester. Pray for me, the next place I'm going to, I'm really unsure that it's able to be turned around. And I had about a dozen of them say, we'll pray for you. And I thought I should do something about that. So I said, okay, I'll send you a monthly email to let you know how it's going and how to pray each month. And that proved so effective that I kept doing that. So at every church since then, I would just invite people, if you want to pray it forward, if you want to pray for the next place and pray for the Lord continuing to use me, then you're welcome to join the prayer network. You get a once-a-month prayer update. It gives you ways to pray. You choose how often you want to pray. You can pray for what I'm doing every day. You can pray when it comes to mind. That's up to you. But there, as the card says, there are now literally hundreds and hundreds of people who pray. How wonderful is that? So they've been praying for Salem the whole time I've been here. They get an update every month. Now some of you are thinking, I wish I'd gotten on that list months ago and I would have known what's Pastor Paul saying about us. But all that to say, it's completely voluntary, but if you'd like to stay in touch through prayer, then you'll get a monthly update from me. That monthly update always ends, the last sentence every month is, let me know how I can be praying for you. So that's also a way that you, as well as the other prayer partners, can communicate to me and say, pray for this month, please, and I gladly do it. So if you decide that, I'd like to do that, then just fill it out. You notice you can print your name clearly and print your email clearly. The odds of getting an email to you go up if I can actually read what you wrote. So if you just fill it out, you can turn it in the basket back in the lobby. You can turn it into the church office. You could hand it to me during the lunchtime. But we'll add you to the list if you want to be added to the list. So as I was thinking about the farewell Sunday, even though, again, I'm back next week, but I have no idea what I'm going to preach about next week. Somewhere between now and next Sunday, it will become more clear to me, I'm sure. But today I'd been thinking a lot about what do I want to say on my last official Sunday at Salem Covenant, and it wasn't hard to think about what to say. So I jotted all my notes down, and then as I looked at it, I thought, well, it's obvious what passage I should use. But I decided what I wanted to say before I looked for the passage, which is a little backwards for me, but I guess I'm entitled to do that on this Sunday. So if you want to follow along, and if you're using that red Bible right in front of you, it's page 830, and for those of you using your own Bible, it's Philippians chapter 1. Some things here that just echo how I feel about all of you here at Salem. Philippians 1, 3-8. I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy. That is true. If I got a phone call in the coming weeks from someone that the search committee is in serious conversation with, and they call me and say, Paul, can I talk to you about Salem Covenant? I would say, oh, yes, you can. If they said, well, what's your view on Salem Covenant? I would say, dear people, sweet church family, you should go there. And I wouldn't tell anybody to go here, but I would tell the person who's the right fit. Now, if they told me certain things about how they like to do ministry and it didn't fit with you, I'd say, don't go. You're the wrong person. But for the right person, this is a sweet church family to be part of. So that does not feel like a stretch at all for me. I thank my God every time I remember you in all my prayers for all of you. I always pray with joy. I will continue praying for Salem, and it will bring a smile to my face and warmth to my heart every time I do. And then Paul talks about why. And notice that he's going to talk about partnership in the gospel. So that's the obvious answer. But think about the word partnership. Gospel we understand. But what Paul's saying is the reason this church has become near and dear to his heart is because they've closed ranks and they've had relationship working together. That once you team up and draw close with someone, you don't really disengage. So watch for that. He says, I thank my God every time I remember you in all my prayers for all of you. I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And then Paul gives them a word of encouragement, which I can relay to you as well. Being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. You, individually, you collectively as Salem Covenant are in wonderfully good hands because you're in the Lord's hands. He's been working, he'll keep working, and he'll keep that up until the day Christ returns. You can count on that. So Paul says in verse 7, it's right for me to feel this way about all of you, since I have you in my heart. And you've got a spot in my heart. Whether I'm in chains, hopefully that won't happen to me in my next interim, whether I'm in chains or defending and confirming the gospel, all of you share in God's grace with me. So he's twice used this image of partnership, of something in common, of relationship, and something we share, just like we're going to share the meal following this service. It's something we share and have in common together. And so he says in verse 8, God can testify how I long for all of you with the affection of Christ Jesus. The shortest way to say it is, I will miss being with you. I enjoy Salem Covenant Church. It's a long drive from home. I enjoy Salem Covenant Church. And like Paul, I'll be praying for you, and when I do, it will be with lots of thankfulness, some wonderful memories, and yet still praying that the Lord continues working as you move forward. I say that for a couple of reasons. There's a sense of family here, and I think it has even strengthened during these last 10 months. There's peace, but even more than peace, there's a sense of unity, and even more than that, there's a sense of family that we have sort of revisited and reclaimed what knits us together. And that it isn't differing, and it isn't who said what or who felt what about what, but instead I think we've returned to, if you will, our roots, like communion brings us back to every month. That the essence of family is what binds us together is the one thing we all have in common. That we are family, that we are sons and daughters, that we are the people of God together, that we're a family. And that when you stay majoring on that, that starts to shape how we treat each other as brothers, as sisters, even in our differences. Just like in our own households where we have differences, but we don't cease being family. There's a wonderful sweetness about Salem Covenant as a church family where you've returned and you're clinging to what the root of family is really all about. That image of Jesus as the vine and we the branches. There's something else that I'll often think of and continue praying for, and if I get a call from a potential pastor, tell them about. The other thing I'm really thankful for the Lord for here at Salem is we're not only family, but we're a functioning family. Not every church is a functioning family. Some of them are a dysfunctioning family. We're functioning, and so that image of the church as a body works well here. I listed different ways we're functioning. Just sit back and without becoming chest puffed out about it, be very grateful and take this in. These are all affirmations of how we're functioning. Communication between leadership and congregation. Even when we're having to resolve or navigate difficult issues, communication between people when there have been differences or when there's been a wall. And both of those have been taking place on an ongoing basis during the last 10 months. That's part of functioning healthy as a family, opening the lines of communication, communicating regularly the good news, and when we have difficulties, leaning into that and communicating about that. Caring. If I thought of a word that epitomized Salem Covenant in my experience, that would be the word. Caring in a variety of ways. So the deacons and deaconesses have increased their care, their contacts, their reaching out for those who need a call, need a visit, need practical help. If you want to have an uplifting time, go to McMillan's after service on Sundays. We have a group of widows who gather for lunch pretty much every Sunday at McMillan's. It is a delightful group. And there's caring and sharing and supporting one another as widows. It's a sweet thing to be there. I've been there. They misbehave in the most delightful ways. You should go see sometime. It's a fun group. There's the personal calling and caring, which doesn't have to do with our structure. It just means many of you check in on, follow up on, reach out and call others. There's practical helping. Giving transportation, giving extra help, giving food, giving financial assistance, and the list goes on and on and on. Salem is a very caring, functional body. Worship, week in and week out. Do you realize we don't have a paid worship leader, and yet every week the services are planned out consistent with what the sermon's going to talk about, and we have teams of people who plan the singing. And yet you wouldn't hear much of it if we didn't have our tech and AV people upstairs. And before you ever get in the worship space, you're warmly greeted by people who love being a people person, usher, greeter in the back. There's a lot of functioning that goes into worship. No wonder it was rated our top strength by you. Boards, and I mean that in the plural, boards that are functioning. So yes, there is the executive board. It meets every month and it's doing good work. But you've heard about, and soon you'll hear a lot more as we step into September, about the CE board that is overseeing and driving and staffing with volunteers ministry to children, nursery, Awana. Then there's the youth ministry run by key volunteers, and it's a Sunday morning program, a Wednesday night program, and a once a month next big thing activity, as well as confirmation for our 7th and 8th graders. All of that covered by volunteers, all of that organized and communicated well. Our search team. So let me just say this, the search team, as I've stayed in touch with their process and their progress, we have a really good search team. And they're doing really good work to get so close to what they hoped might be a chosen person and then have to, in a sense, restart back to the drawing board can be disheartening. It's a good group. They are doing their work very well and working together. And it represents different age groups of the church. You as a congregation chose and voted in younger adults, not just all the veteran, long-time members onto that team. That's a huge statement about health and functioning as a church. I think there's a message there that many of you said, we are gladly saying the younger and next generations need to increasingly be the ones that have a significant ownership in the life of this church. It's represented on our search team where we have a variety of ages, but many are in their 30s and 40s. It's a wonderfully healthy sign that you opted for. The building is always well cared for, clean, the grounds are taken care of. That doesn't happen by accident. Again, that's functioning. So that's thank you, trustees, who not only keep track of the finances, but also of the facility. A lot of functioning parts. That's my point. And we haven't even gotten to talking about specific teams and groups or people who just team up to go and do something together. It's working together, not alone. So when I think of Salem Covenant, I think of family. I think of a functioning family. And then I think of fruit. I get that from Philippians 1, 9 through 12, but it also is found throughout the New Testament. But look at it with me. Paul says, "This is my prayer." And his prayer is not very long and it's not very complicated. That should be a signal for us. Here's what he prays. First, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight. So the first thing, the major thing Paul prays for, is that knowledge, even what we're doing now, looking at the Bible, even what we do in our groups or in Sunday gatherings or Wednesday nights or in your personal devotions, Paul says all of that knowledge that you're gaining in the Bible should result in, it should be fuel for growing in love. Otherwise, it's just head knowledge. So the Bible has an important place in our life, but it needs to show up in love. The more we're informed, the more loving we should be in the biblical sense of the word. So isn't that interesting that Paul prays that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight? He could have just prayed, I pray that your knowledge and insight would increase, and then we'd be very knowledgeable people. I like what Joe Aldrich said many years ago. When we stand before the Lord, He's not going to put a tape measure around our head. He's going to put a tape measure around our heart. So knowledge is to inform and increase our love, imitating Christ. Notice what else he prays about that love abounding. Because when you have knowledge that digests and shows up as increasing love, then you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. And now there's another result, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. As we get more informed from the Bible, and as we put that into practice by loving other people, there's a byproduct Paul's praying about, which is it has a fruit effect in your life also. He's not just praying that as we get more knowledgeable and live it out in love, that others would be loved well in a Christ-like way. He's also saying the more you put that into practice, guess what? You are changing as a person. Of course you are. You become what you practice. Go to the gym 6 days a week. Funny thing, you might get in better shape and might drop a few pounds if you need to. Study an instrument, and after a few years, funny thing, you're a better musician. Or pick anything you want, a sport, a hobby. The more you work at it, the more you practice it, the better you become. It's not talking about perfection, it's talking about progress. So here's Paul's prayer for fruit. Fruit of love showing up through God's people to others. And in doing that loving, I'm learning better how to live a Christ-pleasing life, and there's a fruit in my life I'm becoming more righteous, more right as in the way we were meant to live, and it's coming through Christ. So, what Paul's talking about is faith in the Lord showing up as love toward other people. And he's not talking about that as a concept for us to hold in our head. He's talking about that as a behavior or a lifestyle. And the more you do it, the stronger those muscles become. So, urging. What is the invitation challenge I would leave you? It's the same that Paul does to the Philippians in chapter 1, verse 27. Whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Then, whether I come and see you or only hear about you in my absence, Paul says, so I may come and visit. If I come back and visit Salem at some point, that'll be delightful, and here's some things I'd love to hear are happening if I come back and visit. And Paul says, but if I don't come back and visit, this is the rumor I want to hear. This is the report I'd love to hear from distance, knowing that you stand firm in one spirit, striving together as one for the faith of the gospel. There's what we agree on, right? There's what binds us together as family. Christ and the gospel. And we live it out functionally as a family, and I think we're getting more and more functional, as I talked about. And yet, at the heart of it, what Paul's talking about is we improve and we get stronger as we act and as we put it into practice. So what if faith in the Lord was your personal and our collective reflex? What if when you didn't know what to do, you always went back to the same reflex? We're going to trust the Lord. What if things aren't working out the way we planned, hoped, or there's a need and we don't know how to meet it? Oh, what if our reflex was, okay, that's a chance to act on, to live out, to flesh out faith. Which means you don't always have to have the answer, you just have to know where to go, who does have the answer. And he may show you right away, and he may not show you for a while, and you may only see it in the rearview mirror. Doesn't really matter as much as knowing, I know who I'm going to. Maybe I've mentioned it in many months past. Chances are if I did, you probably don't remember it anyway. One of the most secure feelings for me as a kid growing up, my father would take us to parks, sometimes huge regional parks, and we'd ride bikes and we'd take hikes. But he would always first sit us down and say something. Usually we'd have lunch before we went off to play or run around. And as lunch was ending, while we were all still together, he would say this to us: if you ever get lost, sit tight. I will find you. Can you imagine how secure I felt as a kid? I wasn't interested in getting lost, but I already knew what to do if I did get lost. Because when you're not sure what to do, or you're nervous, or there's a need and you don't know how to meet it, for many of us, the nervous energy starts kicking up. We better do something. We better do something now. Let's do something. Let's do anything. And we end up sort of like chickens with their heads cut off sometimes. And in contrast to that, my dad just said, if you're lost, if you aren't sure what to do, just stay put. I'll find you. It was really pressing back on, do I believe my dad will come looking for me until he finds me? And you would have had to have known my dad, but the answer was a resounding, oh yes. So I wasn't really ever nervous. But a lot of times I didn't know what to do. But I always knew I can count on my dad. I can count on my dad. So increasingly through practice, not just agreeing in our head, Oh, to make that our reflex in any and every situation, in our personal needs and situations and questions. And the same as a church, right? Don't wait for someone else to say, could we just stop and pray about that? Anybody can initiate that. Could we take a few minutes and pray about that right now? You see? You're exercising that muscle of saying, let's just practice faith in God as our reflex. And then the other reflex goes outward. Paul's prayed about it for the Philippians and by extension for us as well. That abounding more and more in love. So what if we just kept cultivating those two knee-jerk responses anytime and every time? Not sure what to do, faith in God. Encountering other people, whether delightful, whether irritating, whether people of a different belief, whether someone highly needy, someone who is on the margins, or somebody who's right in the center of things, doesn't matter. What if my instinctive reflex, what if your instinctive reflex is, how can I show love right now, Lord? And what this verse is saying that Paul's praying is, as we do that, that's how you get better. Just think about everything else in life. How do you learn to ride a bike? Hop on, start pedaling. Maybe you have training wheels at first, but eventually they come off. And pretty soon you're going over hills and everything else. My 5-year-old grandson, for whom school is really stressful. He has some learning challenges. So he, on the first day of school, gets dropped off by his mom, my daughter. And when she picks him up that afternoon, here's what he says to Mom: how many more days of school? And he didn't say it like, gee, I can't wait to go back. It was, how long does my prison sentence last this year, Mom? And then he'll say, I don't want to go next week. So school's a hard thing, and yet he's 5 years old, and they're sending me little phone videos because they've enrolled him in little kids BMX biking. And it's a whole course with hills and dips and turns, and you're on a bike, and you have a number on the front of your bike, and you have a helmet. There's even an announcer up in a big stand, and you can hear him. And as the kids, the gate goes up and the bell rings, and off go these little tiny guys pumping on their little bikes and navigating the hills and up and down and the turns and the curves, passing each other. And the announcer's calling everybody's name. Look, there goes number 5, Brady number 5. And I'm thinking, I know who Brady is. Brady's my grandson. He's been doing it 2 weeks. He's getting better already. He's interested and he likes it. He'll be riding again this afternoon. He's not ready for the Olympics. But how do you get better at BMX biking? Get on the bike and start riding. How do you get better at a life of faith? Start trusting God, whatever comes up. How do I grow in love? Show love and ask God, how can I show love to the person right here in front of me? This need I heard about. It doesn't mean you do it perfectly, and it doesn't always mean you know exactly how to do it. It just means you'll get better riding the bike as you ride the bike. That's what Paul's talking about. Now, in verse 27 of chapter 1, some final comments. Because notice what is there and what's not there. So look at it again, Philippians 1, verse 27. Whatever happens, whether things go wonderfully well or whether it's tough rowing, whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Faith in God is your reflex, love for other people is your reflex. Then, whether I come and see you or only hear about you in my absence, I'll know that you stand firm in one spirit, striving together as one for the faith of the gospel. Here's what Paul's not saying there. It's absent intentionally. Don't settle for peace in the camp. Be grateful for it, but that's not the ultimate goal and end of the line. So don't settle for, oh, you know what, we're a church family and Pastor Paul said we're functional and fruit can keep coming as I guess we're okay. Don't settle. The great thing about the life of walking with Christ in this life is even as you get older, you're still growing and changing. It means you're alive, not static. Don't settle for the absence of tension or conflict. That's just settling for the absence of negative. Don't settle into, well, we're just waiting and on hold until a new permanent pastor comes. No, we're not. We've made a lot of progress and keep making progress, and some pastor will be fortunate and blessed to join you, but you're not on hold. Don't settle into a maintenance, we're waiting mindset. And we've heard this often, but it certainly is true and true throughout Philippians. Don't allow relational walls on secondary things to start to get built. Somebody irritates you, you have a difference of opinion with someone, you have a sharp argument with someone, just clean it up. It's not that big a deal if you address it. If you don't address it, then you're starting to lay bricks, and those walls create coldness, and there goes the health of the family. And that's not the fruit Paul's praying for. Instead, notice what he does say. Do stand firm and agree on. So stand firm and agree on being people of faith in Jesus and his gospel. That's it. That's the vine. Don't have to agree about if you loved all the worship songs on any given Sunday. Don't have to agree on how long or short the sermons ought to be, etc., etc., etc. We hold on to what makes us family, Jesus and his gospel. Okay, how about if we ride the bike a little bit? So it's audience participation time, and you're always free to say, I'm going to enjoy listening, I'm not sure I want to say anything. So I don't want anybody to feel any pressure. On the other hand, I invite you to hop on the bike. I'm going to ask a question, think about it, and then talk to two people around you. You get a choice. You can pick an item related to faith, or you can pick an item related to love. If you want, there's no extra credit, but if you are one of those students who likes extra credit, you could pick both, but it's brief. So here's the question. This week, pray I would show, and now you either put the word faith or the word love. About, and now it's a situation, maybe it's a relationship. If it's highly private, just say another person. You don't need to air any private laundry here. But this week, I would like prayer for, and you either put in the word faith or love, and then just finish the sentence about. For example, for me, this week, I'm going to go for the double header. This week, I would like prayer for exercising faith for the future. Because there's some questions I have about my and my family's future. I don't have the answers, but I know what the questions are. And this week, I would like prayer for love, because funny thing, it also relates to my family. Different family members need to be loved by dad, grandpa, husband, but those are all different gears. The way I show love to my wife is really different than the way I need to show love to some of my kids, and that's even a little different than the way I need to show love to my grandkids, whom I love, but they require an extra dose of patience. So now you know how to pray for my love, that I grow in patience. Okay, you can pick one or the other, but this week in my own faith, would you pray for my faith about, and you just finish the sentence. Or this week, for my exercising love, pray about. It's just a sentence. But it's a chance to think about how we're applying this, and you leave here not doing the faith life alone, but in relationship with others. And again, you have the option to say, I'm going to enjoy listening, but I don't have anything that comes to mind right now, and that's fine. If you don't know someone you're talking to, make sure it starts with, I'm Paul, who are you? 2 minutes, so don't give a sermon. 2 minutes, I'll be back and I'll wrap up in 2 minutes. I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all of you, I pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that the one who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Lord, thank you for your word that not only informs our mind, our understanding, but is practical, that it's meant to go in our ears, stick in our head, and then show up in our feet, in our hands, and in our attitudes. So thank you for this good word. Thank you for this church family, the sweetness of Salem Covenant Church. Lord, may we continue to go forward in faith, in love, and then to see what you do that will bless you and surprise and delight us. In difficult times, may we have the reflex of faith and love. When we get sideways or cold towards someone else in the church family, help us, Lord, to keep short accounts, to communicate, to resolve it. May our heart of love be not only for one another here within the walls of Salem Covenant, but for people, those we cross paths with, those we live in the community with, those that you bring to our attention. Thank you for these good people. Thank you for the blessing and privilege I've had to be here for these 10 months. Thank you that we are in very good hands, your hands. Pray in Christ's name, amen. Would you stand together as we close in song?